Hello, hello. Welcome to this edition of At the Mic. I'm your host, Keith Malinak, and I just opened up Twitter so that I could make sure everybody saw this was live and that we're about to go on here. And I open it up and I see like a video that AOC has posted, and she's talking to the camera. So I can't wait to watch that later. Sounds like some show prep material waiting there. Okay, welcome. Thank you for joining us here for the Deep Dive Thursday edition that we do. Now, I have had since July 4th 3 of these conversations with Jovan Pulitzer about election integrity and all of the major problems that we have in our election system. And then, for good measure, I went ahead and scheduled this sit down with Jovan and Eve, and thinking we're not going to know who's going to have won the 2024 presidential election by Thursday. We've been conditioned to expect the winner in December, so I just wanted to put this one on the books, and there was a small little hope of me when we went ahead and scheduled this, our 4th conversation about election integrity. You know what? Maybe we'll have some good news. Maybe we'll be gathering on good terms. And who knows? But either way, I want to have Jovan here because even if we do win, I know there's still going to be plenty of fraud and malfeasance to address. And I know that is definitely the case. I want to bring in Jovan Pulitzer. I've got Eve. You'll be hearing her audio as well. Before we go any further, I want to make sure you're aware of Jovan's website there, the Jovan Hutton Pulitzer.locals.com. Jovan Hutton Pulitzer.locals.com. Also, check out his stuff at fireaxe.academy. That's a cool domain, I'll say. Fireaxe with the E there, .academy. And then, of course, the book that really got me on this path with these two pit bulls when it comes to rooting out election fraud and securing our elections is their book, Countdown to Chaos, which you can get over at Amazon.com. Look for the book, Countdown to Chaos. It's got Joe Biden and Donald Trump on the cover. So here we are. 2 days removed from the 2024 election, Jovan and Eve. I will say that people on our side of the election are happy with the result, but we shouldn't be satisfied. Is that an accurate assessment?
I for one did not expect to have a call that quick.
Mm-hmm.
I want to remind you, all that has technically happened is the prevailing Edison data that polls the different polling places show that Donald J. Trump has won. That has been reported by the networks, and they're calling it a winner. Officially, by law, until that number is canvassed, which means officially certified by the county and the Secretary of State, etc., it's technically not official. Now, there are still some states in limbo, like Arizona, and I believe, they've accepted the Donald Trump stuff, but now they're working underhandedly to try to control the Senate and the House, which are also doing in Nevada, and that's why they need extra long days to count. So yes, Donald J. Trump did win. Donald J. Trump has been declared the winner. I'm still pensive about it because of what we've been through. Call me tainted, I don't know. But the fact that it's not officially canvassed yet, and we still have not only between, we've got 13 days. In 13 days, it should be canvassed by the states. That's about the 20th of November. Now, the canvass, meaning the county has inspected it and says, yes, this is right. That canvass from November 20th then goes up to the governors to basically certify it and send it up for, the electoral vote, which is December 8th, right? And then we still have to get to January 20th. So we still have the local canvasses, meaning certification has not happened. The governor's confirmation of the certification, which comes 10 days later, has not happened. Sending it to the electors December 8th and having it presented January 6th and that's the next day. So there's the 8th, they have to have it in by. There's the 6th, by it being officially accepted at the House. And then there's the 20th in Inauguration Day. You have to understand there's still several dates ahead of us. Put nothing past the evil that's been out there.
I mean, that's a fair point. I mean, here I fully expected you to walk us through where the fraud still exists, and I have plenty of questions for you and charts and fun stuff that I want to get your read on. I was not expecting the calendar between now and January 20th to be where we were going to start with
the only thing I would like to do.
Clouds.
The only thing I would like to do for your audience, if we can all eradicate the word fraud from our vocabulary, will be better. It's actually maladministration. The reason Arizona is not prepared to do all the counts and it's taking all these extra days is because they were ill-prepared, maladministered. The reason machines didn't work right, that's maladministration. Now, here's the really important point on this, because I saw various so-called election experts talking about the fraud. We have state elections that have some federal components. This happened to us in 2020. When everybody starts screaming fraud, they miss the fact that it bounces out of the state or county jurisdiction and it bounces it up to the Department of Justice. That's Merrick Garland. Refuse to utter the word fraud. It lets them off the hook. This is maladministration.
Interesting.
Now, the reason you have to stick to maladministration is that it keeps it at the county or the state level. It allows you to investigate it. It even allows for the redo of elections. Fraud doesn't, but maladministration does. And if you're investigating maladministration and you find it repeatable and widespread, then it becomes malfeasance, which then it becomes a crime. Then it becomes fraud. So I would encourage everybody, try to eliminate the word fraud from your vocabulary only when talking about elections, because it hurts us. It's maladministration.
All right.
Do you want Merrick Garland? Yeah, right. Do you want Merrick Garland to do? I'm just telling you, that's what killed us in 2020. We have to really take what we learned in 2020 if we can.
So that's interesting stuff there, man. I appreciate that a lot. I don't honestly. I'm looking at all of my notes and all my charts and stuff here. I really don't know where to begin with this conversation, other than to say that there is there's a chart that's going around here that I see it and I immediately think of you and all that you have taught us here over the past several months. Let me see if I can get this to come up on the screen here, because there's an individual, Educated Hillbilly posted a graph that caught my eye yesterday, and I just retweeted it out today. I might have gotten this from your account, honestly, Jovan. You might have retweeted this out. I don't know.
Well, I am an educated hillbilly, so
you're an educated hillbilly. I just love this here.
I just throw you off because I have all my teeth.
Oh, your teeth. Anyway. The U.S. Presidential election popular vote graph that's been going around, and basically, as you're looking at that chart, it shows a pretty steady line there. 2012, 2016, and 2024. We'll just skip 2020 for the moment. And here are the Democrat vote totals in the elections. 2012, Obama gets 66 million. 2016, Hillary Clinton gets 66 million, almost identical numbers. 66
right.
Million. Now let's skip.
And by the way, Obama's 2012 was bigger than the first time around. They were singing its praises about what a massive election it was.
2024, we're going to skip 2020 for a moment. 2024. We're now up to 68.1 million for Kamala Harris. So she's added a couple of million votes from 2016. So now let's look at the 2012 numbers for Republican Mitt Romney, 60.9. Donald Trump, 62.9. Then in 2024, Donald Trump is at 72.8 million votes right now. So something looks a little bit off there in 2020. Wow, boy, that Donald Trump was actually very, very popular, going from his 63 million in 2016 all the way to 74 plus million. And now he's down to 72.8 million. But yet it was record turnout, and the base was energized and charged, and he drew from all sorts of areas these votes. But somehow he ends up with less than 2020. But oh, hold on a second. Look at how crazy popular Joe Biden was compared to Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, spiking from the 66 million that we've been discussing all the way above, north of 81 million. And then she's back down to 68 million. I mean, if that right there isn't a water cooler chart to keep in your pocket over the next couple of weeks when you're talking to coworkers about maladministration, I just think this is the most damning chart that I've seen in the last few days. Do you have some thoughts on this, Jovan?
Yeah, let me share with everyone how to read it. First, let's take Donald Trump's numbers in 2020. And you clearly see his numbers are higher than here in 2024. That too is a synthetic number.
That's what I was.
When evil things and nefarious things are being done, don't think they just drop in votes for the bad candidate. You can't.
Right.
It sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yep.
So it's always blended. And in the blending, they have to make it look like a foot race. That's the trick. Now, two things happened. They had so much to overcome that they overdid it, but also in blending in synthetic false Trump votes, they have to, especially in the swing states, they do this little massaging technique where they're putting both in so it doesn't stick out, just so they can smooth those to a foot race and make you believe it. Now, you're seeing a 2024 vote of President Trump being more popular than ever, probably more votes than 2020.
Oh, wow.
You're seeing people leaving the Democrat Party, voting Republican, but also at the same time, most people forget there was a large movement among Christian churches to say refuse to vote for Donald Trump because he's too crude and he grabbed the punani once or twice. And so you're seeing a counterbalancing there. So that's how you read the red. When you look at the blue, you have to understand they spent more money and more media this time round than they did for the 2020 Joe Biden round. Why? Because he's a criminal, he's been indicted, they've done all of this other stuff. Now, you would think that would energize the base of the left. So you would think that blue number would move right over. Well, it didn't. And the reason it didn't is for several reasons. Everybody in the United States is now more educated on civics and our elections and how they're run and what maladministration is and what bad BD is, more than they've ever been before in history. So there were much more eyes looking for the nefarious activity. So a lot of it really couldn't be done. We didn't have a pandemic, right, where they could hide all the mail-in ballots.
Right.
And so that's why you don't see that number translate over. Okay. I'm going to tell you that the vote for Biden was less, truly in 2020, was less than what Camilla got this time around, even though the Camilla numbers are highly padded when you look at the states where her vote came in. And so that's why that number didn't translate to the right, because it's vaporware based upon fungible assets. And what I mean is, and I told people this, think of it logically now that we're out of it. They had a pandemic, poll watchers couldn't be close, Everything had to be separated from the norm. You had to be far back. Poll watchers couldn't be right there watching the ballot count. You had to sit across the room. They taped up the windows with cardboard and stuff. They had mysterious trucks appearing at night, supposedly when somebody wasn't there. That's a physical manifestation of what they're doing because they don't want you to see it, right? And you have to understand that in terms of the con that everybody said, it's the machines, because on the machines, it's totally invisible. So why were they hiding physical manifestations? And so that's how you also know that it's all about people, paper, and programs, not the machines. But I'm going to tell you, Biden was probably lower than Kamala this time around organically, even though the number of Kamala this time is probably inflated. It might be inflated 1 million plus votes, easy, for Kamala's true number this time around. But that one chart proves America springing back and paying attention, and just how bad the maladministration, malfeasance, and now proof of it, which we know, which means it was in fact fraud in 2020.
So how to help us to understand what worked this go around as far as stopping or at least severely limiting this malfeasance? What is it that was done differently from securing our election standpoint?
Two things. People realized it's all about them. The people are the cure, right? People were apathetic in 2020. People learned that because of 2020 and stuff, we became irrelevant. They're willing to kill us. They're willing to marginalize us, and they're willing to suppress us. So there is the first thing you're looking at. It's called the pissed off factor. People got pissed off and did the right thing. A certain amount of people said, to hell with it. My vote doesn't count. I'm not going to vote anyway. Luckily, more people than not got pissed off, and they showed up. They showed up in person, off the charts in person, to do this. Now, when you combine that through the efforts of all of us in, well, I guess what you would call alternative media, taking the time to teach people how this works, America was better educated. The people that actually work in the elections were better educated, which means, you can swing an election and you only have to have 2 bad people out of 100 or even 1,000. And because so many eyes got open to how this really happens, you had everybody watching for it. They couldn't repeat the pandemic thing. And so they kind of just had to try to rely on swing states and the no ID states to say they could pull it out. And the Delta was just too big.
Right.
They could not do it. Now, you've got to understand that green bar of crap, 21 million people on our voter rolls that should not be there. And I don't believe it's sweeping a dirt floor that we can fix it. But they've added 8 million illegals. That blue bar that you see not used, I'm telling you, it's coming to us in 2 years. And they're going to change the whole face and neuter Donald J. Trump in the House and the Senate, because that's when they're going to use those illegals and all of those bad ones on the books. They're going to scoot them over. They're going to use it. They're going to neuter them and get them out, or should make them useless. That's what's going to happen, because nothing's been fixed.
Right. Okay. Oh boy. All right. So, my goodness. Now, it's been very muted to this point, but it does appear that there is a certain group among liberals that look at this chart and just go, wait a minute, where did our 20 million votes go? Who wants to tell them? Like, how do you have that conversation? Are they being serious? I mean, is this a real
the
thing?
numbers never lie. They would have to say we disenfranchised or alienated 20 million, 15 million of our voters, and they sat at home. You could probably sell that for maybe 1 million or 2 voters. You can't sell it for 15 million voters.
Right.
And so I think anybody that's a realist now looks at this chart, which is forever now memorialized in history, and you're going to see that anomaly tied with every other anomaly, and you're going to look at the personalities involved, Donald J. Trump and Biden, and you're going to realize everything we said happened, did happen. It's now confirmed, even though they want to ignore it historically.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things that is so stunning out of 2024 compared to 2020 is that let's go to 2016, and Donald
Right.
Trump won all of the bellwether counties
Correct.
and then won the election. In 2020, he won all of the bellwether counties except for one in Delaware. It makes sense that Biden would win that in his home state. But somehow Biden, and when I talk about bellwether counties, y'all, I'm talking about 8, 10, 12, 14, 17 on this chart that I'm looking at. Trump wins all of them, but somehow gets destroyed in the Electoral College. And then in 2024,
it's because they flooded the swing states and the non-ID states, which don't necessarily. So you got to remember, counties are completely different. Bellwether counties are completely different than the 6 counties that wagged this dog.
Yeah, and just looking at 2024, where Harris actually did better in the bellwether counties than Biden. She won 2 of them, one in Delaware, Biden's home state, and one in the state of Washington, far left. And then
But
Trump,
still
of
lost.
course, yeah, exactly. So it shows you that 2020 is the biggest anomaly.
Well,
And I want to.
here's how you look at it. An election and the way an election's run is designed to audit itself. They checks and balance wherever you report how many people voted by mail, how many people walked in, how many people voted on election day. All the numbers should match, and all the papers should match. This many folded by machine, this many folded by hand, this many printed out. An election is designed to audit itself. What you just said is to show the veracity of that blue pipe going up is you just used another metric that when you look at it goes, wait a minute, this makes no sense. But when you look at it compared to everything else, what you just did is you presented another way to cross-confirm that 2020 is a pile of crap.
It is a pile of crap. And I want to also let me point this out here. So these are Donald Trump's electoral vote totals. In 2016, 304 against Clinton. Now let's go to 2020. Boy, I guess we were just really mad at him. But remember, he had more votes. He gets 235 electoral votes versus Biden. And I'll address that 316 in the margin there in just a second. And then we go to 2024. He's back up to 312 versus Harris. So we're to believe that America loved Donald Trump in 2016, loathed him in 2020, and then somehow scrambled back to him in mass, even more so in 2024. But that 316 that I have there, that's if you take away the states that I think is pretty clear were hijacked and taken from him and handed to Biden. So
and now that I just said that elections always cross audit themselves, you presented another way that cross audits that blue spike.
That's right.
This is how it always happens.
So a lot of people in the chat are asking, and I do want to talk about some races that have yet to be determined. And that is some of these Senate races that are still lingering out there as it stands at the moment. I believe it is 52 to 52 to 45 in favor of the Republican Party as far as the Senate. So there are a few seats still out there. And some interesting things have been happening with the Nevada race, the Arizona race. What was the other one that was lingering? Pennsylvania with Bob Casey. And we just had some very tight ones in Michigan and Wisconsin called. Can you speak to what's going on there? Because it seems like some funny stuff is happening behind the scenes there, huh?
Well, look at the common denominators of those states. All of them came out and said it's going to take us longer to count the count. All of them have long extended early voting. And they even approved funky things like if you're looking at Nevada, your ballot can come in later and it doesn't even have to be postmarked. Now, remember, if it's not postmarked, it means if you can collect them in bulk, vote them the way you want, and you just bring a bunch in, it's going to be counted. That's the common denominator. And so what you're seeing going on is what we call the ballot smoothing effect. They now have all of the information they need. Now, they cannot escape that Donald J. Trump won. And so what they have to do is they have to go to Plan B and Plan C and Plan D, and that's called ballot smoothing. And that's where they actually now start pumping up the lower tickets, Senate, Congress, everything else lower to put their people in. Now, once again, that also gives you a check balance difference. Why? Because if you look at those people, let's just take Arizona, you will find overwhelmingly they voted for Donald Trump. But when you look at down ticket, the senator, they chose Gallego versus Kerry Lake. That's where they're fluffing it up underneath to try to undermine Trump, to try to get their vote closer. And that is always why they need the perpetual time hack and inventory hack. All of those states have those in common.
So, I don't know, from where you sit, Jovan, how do you see these Senate races playing out? Is the Republican Party showing enough interest there to make sure that these seats aren't stolen, or
if
is
the
anything going
Republican
on?
Party wanted to make sure these seats weren't stolen, they would have done something 4 years ago. Not now. It's a little too late.
It's a little too late. Yeah.
And will the Republican Party do anything in Arizona? It's kind of like asking the mafia to stop human trafficking and selling drugs and stuff. They're going to basically tell you no.
Okay.
So Arizona, hopeless, ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of your Arizona citizen and House members that got us to audit in 2020 knew the real facts, and not one of them reported it or allowed it to be talked about. Now, if it would have been fixed then, you would have already had Kerry Lake as a governor.
Yeah, right.
But see, they knew they were going to do this, and there's no way they could let Kerry Lake in as governor, so they had to make sure that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And now they don't even want her as a senator.
Yeah,
it's the same old crap, uniparty stuff. Yeah. And by the way, why are they fighting for Arizona? Because it's the pipeline of illegal money. They need it coming across.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I actually had a very similar thought, Jovan. I was thinking, okay, we're down to 5 Senate seats that weren't decided at the time. It was Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and then I stopped and I was like,
look up your swing states. They're all swing states.
Right. And I thought to myself, okay, well, those are all Democrat governors, so that sucks. That's probably all going to go Democrats. And now we've had Wisconsin and Michigan fall, and like you said, Arizona's about to fall as well, as far as the Senate seat goes. In Pennsylvania, we'll see how that
remember
one plays
one
out.
thing is we have state elections which have a federal component. We don't have federalized elections.
Yeah.
So one of the ways to counterbalance Trump is to make sure you control what you need at the governor and or the Senate level at the state. Well, so you can say, no, we have state elections, we're not doing what you say. Folks,
right. And that's where my train of thought went. It took me to Nevada, and I didn't confirm this, but I'm pretty sure there's a Republican governor there. But then I got to stop, and I thought, wait a minute, no, that's the guy that was involved with the Las Vegas shooting, so that's kind of hopeless. And then I had the same thought. So basically what you just laid out as far as how the Republican Party leadership looks at Kerry Lake, and they're not going to go and defend her in Arizona.
Well, wait a minute.
Kind of where
let's don't talk in oxymorons. Just like election integrity, there's no integrity in elections. You can't say GOP leadership or Republican leadership.
So I got to the point where I thought to myself, Republican leadership in the state of Nevada is probably not going to ride to the rescue there. It appears that we're going to get stuck on the 52 number. I fear, as far
and
as
in the 52 goes. There's going to be some that are squishy in the loafers. Always going to be bribable, and it's going to that's the rig. That's how they do this, and that's how they keep us suffering and overcharged for their impotent bought off BS ways. And by the way, do you know these guys don't like me for telling the truth, right?
Usually the people in a generation who tell the truth are not appreciated.
I'll tell you a very funny story. I'm speaking at an event. I guess Laura and Era Trump was there. I'm speaking at an event in maybe North Carolina, I think. And there was an Arizona lawmaker on the stage with me. And he's doing his little dog and pony. And I basically start talking about the facts in Arizona and talk about ballot security. And oh, by the way, you think you're going to get secure ballots. He's selling one that has 3D technology and all this stuff in it. It's crap, but he's not telling you he's getting 25 cents a ballot. Of course, he kind of came unglued, left the stage.
Oh, no.
That son of a bitch should never be allowed to speak at any of these events. Of course, when I come through, he shuts up, sick man. Hey, nice to see you. How you doing? Whatever. That's the game. That's what it is. I'm sorry. Yes, I could kiss butt and play nice, but it's also why I'm not a politician, because I can't kiss butt and play nice because our country is too precious. But that's how they do it. It's just a joke. It's a total nasty joke.
I appreciate the truth. I truly do. So, all right. You know more than the average bear when it comes to election
Are we going to talk about honey?
and securing our elections, Jovan. So how are you? I kind of already got a read on how you're feeling here 48 hours later, but I am curious as to what are the next steps. Was it only do you attribute more to it being too big to rig and so many people came out, or we stopped a lot of the shenanigans? What do you attribute the most?
People, same thing I told President Trump last year. People got off their ass because he asked me, he says, okay, Jovan, you got all this stuff, show him this is big, but how the hell did I win in 2016? I said, because you got people off their ass. I think that happened.
Okay.
Now, the other side of it is, here's what I'm worried about. How about we do this as a pop quiz? You're going to be my student. I'll be the teacher. Is that okay?
Oh, I'm terrible at tests.
Nah, you'll get this. You'll get this. Okay. So I'm going to be the president of the United States, and I'm going to choose my election integrity expert. Here are their qualifications. Contestant A raised $40 million for the GOP.
Oh, no.
Contestant B always appears on television and did a $1 million donation. Contestant C knows their shit, knows how to stop it. Who did you choose for election integrity?
Well, I mean, I chose C, but I'm not the president. So,
well, it's A, because it doesn't really make these choices. The engine does it, and so that's what has me terrified right now.
Yeah, that's what that was my next question.
We didn't win anything
going forward.
We really didn't win. Look, guys, we won a battle. We did not win the war. We just won a battle. That's it. And that right there, just saying that sent cold shivers down my spine. It's just the truth. But I tell you what, you may feel invincible. And I had some people tell me, even in my program this morning, you're kind of poo-poo on the parade. Do we have to talk about this now? And I said, the clock's ticking.
Yeah, right.
People don't learn till the end, and I'm not giving up.
2 years will fly by quickly. 4 years will fly by quickly.
That's right. And I said, this isn't over, folks. We won a battle. We won a skirmish. We won a psychological warfare on us all. That's about it. And it will placate us back into our apathy, which got us here to begin with. We're at more danger than ever. And I'm going to tell you why we're at more danger than ever. We're more danger than ever because the deep state and the system thought they had this. Right? And they've sucked trillions out of the system, and somebody's going to come looking for it very shortly. President Trump's going to release Epstein's list. They're going to do everything to try to delay that for a couple of years. Satan and this nasty machine is going to come back fiercer, harder, meaner, more dangerous than ever.
I don't doubt it.
And we haven't fixed anything. And I am terrified. And I'm just going to tell you the truth. I am terrified of the status quo of putting somebody in there because they have a huge following, or people like them, or you donated a lot of money. Well, you've been around DC politics. You know how it works. You raise $40 million. You be the head of election integrity. If that happens again, we're dead. It's over.
Who would you like to see? Does anybody come to mind other than yourself in charge of election integrity?
I'm not tooting my own horn because you know what? I would have rather not known this information.
Yeah, I bet.
I would have rather not had to do an audit. You got to think about this. It's not a pleasurable thing. But I do believe our team knows more about how this thing's corrupt, broken, and the different ways they do it. And you understand our material is different than everybody else who does this also ran crap. And you now see it. Would I accept a position of doing this for President Trump? Yes. Because I don't think it should be a political appointment. When I say a political appointment, it should not be the GOP. This is now a presidential function, and here's what I mean. The GOP can't correct this. They're part of the system and the machine. If they wanted to correct it, they would have corrected it 4 years ago or 8 years ago. They never have, right? And so what has to happen is we kind of got to split the baby with the bathwater. And here's what I mean. All of these people that put out theories, well, this many people moved in and this many people moved out and this, that's political intelligence. You got to understand for the party, where are the moves, where are the trends or whatever. Has nothing to do with election integrity. Not a bit. It's not going to fix a thing. Yes, there's not that many people there, but does it fix anything? No. And then what we've really got to have in here is election veracity, right? And we have to understand how to plug these holes. And that is an executive functional function. Fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this. And it has nothing to do with political lines, period. Because it doesn't subvert ever the will of the people. It only subverts the will of the political party crap. And if that comes to bear, if we can move from to election veracity, right? I even hate the word fair elections. There are no fair elections as long as people cheat, as long as we have porous election rolls, as long as it's got all these people. Forget fair. And you know what? Sometimes fair isn't right. All the snowflakes want, it's not fair. Screw it. It's transparency and veracity. That it means it runs the way it should run. It should be able to check. So yes, if that came down and I was asked to do this for my country, I would do it. But you got to understand what takes the decision to do that. You're consciously making a decision to piss people off and to hurt people's brains. Why? Because we've got politicians right now in Arizona that will kill an election bill just because I'm right, they're wrong, and I called them out. And so they will basically do it because that makes me look bad. That person shouldn't be serving. And the person who gets pissed off because I tell the truth is not serving the people.
Right.
Period. They should say, okay, I stand corrected or whatever. And so outside of that, I tell you the truth. I can't think of anybody. And if there is, tell me who. Some people might say Mike Lindell. No, that's a loud platform with a lot of money, but it's not fact, right? And I don't think it can be somebody who served in any political appointment before. You can't have an ex-governor or an ex-senator or whatever, because once a politician, always a politician. I think it's got to be just like President Trump, somebody who only does rights for America and doesn't give a shit about the system.
So let's back up just for a moment here to 2016. The left saw Hillary Clinton win the popular vote, which of course could be argued, with the fraud involved there. I'm sorry, the maladministration involved there. So they wanted the national popular vote. National popular vote should supplant or replace the Electoral College.
Right.
Then 2020 happens. And you have all of these states doing their own crazy things through their secretaries of state and far left governors. And all of a sudden they find federalism and states' rights again, and somehow that becomes the
why?
battle cry of the left. I know why. I don't want to get too far away.
They lost the people. See, they know that there's a cushion of 21 million BS voters on the voter rolls. They know that.
Yeah.
And they know they've got 8 million more stuffed on it with motor voter with illegals. So
right.
It is about the popular vote with them because they think they can control it. Now, Look on our side. I love Judicial Watch.
Well,
Tom Filton does great work. And they found 1.2 million bad voters in California that they won a landmark lawsuit to remove them. Mm-hmm. However, the county said we will remove them, but we can only remove 100 a month. Now, I want you to understand that 100 a month, that's 1,200 a year. That's 1,000 years before they have to remove all 1,200. And you know what? That's total BS. And that's the system going for bony points versus solutions.
And here's the point that I wanted to make is that, if we give them we'll start giving out all of the Electoral College votes for states based on the national popular vote. There's states like Maine and so many that have joined this pact to say, yes, we will give our electoral votes to whatever the national popular vote winner is. Well, if they had gotten their way that they've been screaming about for 8 years, and they've gotten their way here in 2024, then the damn map would show over 500 electoral votes for Donald Trump, and the
That's
only
right.
states that Kamala would have won are Virginia and New Hampshire. And so here's my question. This is why I went through that whole mess of we want the popular vote. No, we want the states to be left alone. No, we want to now give our popular vote to the states. The battle cry of the left for the last 8 years.
Well, you are
My
talking
question for
about
you,
people who don't even know what a woman is, right?
what a woman. Yes, okay, that's fair. But here's my question for you. How do you take someone who is genuinely interested in federalism and states having this kind of autonomy over their elections, but at the same time enter in from a federal level a way to ensure integrity without trampling states' rights? How do you implement something like that?
We already have them. Well,
Hit me.
No, we already have them. We're just not enforcing them. Let me give you an example.
Awesome.
We'll use Pennsylvania compared to what we know has gone on. We know in the motor voter hack that they have put 8 million illegals by default on automatic voter registration. Boom, they drop down to the list. Then they enacted new laws that says, well, if the illegal thought they could vote for whatever reason, then it's not a crime because there's no intent. Well, damn it, when you get your driver's license and along comes with it a voter registration, what the hell are you going to think? You're going to think, well, cool, I can vote. We have these laws in effect. Let's go back and look at 2020. Let's look at Pennsylvania and some of these other places. To register, to give somebody a registration form to register to vote, knowing they are not able to be legally registered, is a crime. Allowing that registration after it's filled out to come back into the state and enter it into the database is a crime. To print a ballot for somebody who is not legal to vote, but to still print that ballot is a crime. To send them that ballot is a crime. To accept that ballot is a crime. To actually get to the canvas and say, we're going to count it anyway. Those are all crimes, each of them with about a 3-year penalty. The laws are on the books. Nobody's enforcing them. Now, the most interesting thing about all of this election veracity stuff is 80% of the things that should be done do not require new laws. They just require better freaking contracts. That's it. To put the responsibility where it is. Like right now, the people that print ballots don't have to tell you how many they printed.
Oh my word.
And if they overprint it, don't have to tell you what they did with the overprints. And nobody audits their machines, which are very sophisticated because every time it prints a ballot, it does a click. It's kind of like a mileage on your car, and that's how their machines are serviced. Nobody checks all that stuff. Well, if you have one bad printer and somebody goes in, I'll give you $1 million, you print me 1 million ballots, they'll get them out. It can easily be done. Most of what we are suffering from can be fixed with contract law. Most of what we're suffering from can be fixed by better operational standards. Let me give you an example. In Maricopa County, when they mail out the ballots, now remember, there are 70+% mail-in voting, right? The county sends them a ballot. Now, you know when you get a ballot that the state and the county is basically saying, well, if this comes back, we're going to count it, or they wouldn't be mailing you one. Now, a certain number of those ballots in 2020 was 110,000. They came back somehow in the system. And it said, no such person, no such address, no such number, unknown or dead. Those are called the 5 dones. So that ballot packet came back complete to the county. Now, the county now knows, for some reason, this didn't get delivered. Let me tell you what the county is supposed to do. Let me tell you what the county does. The county is supposed to, within 1 week's time, notify that voter, we got your ballot back. You need to fix this. And if you don't fix it, we're going to move. We have to basically make your registration inactive. Now, here's how they do it. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
They print a postcard
Oh, no.
that says, hey, your ballot came back. How many postcards do you pay attention to in your mail? Probably zero. The cheapest ass postcard there is that looks like it's from Publishers Clearinghouse.
Okay.
They mail it back to the same damn address.
I can't.
Asking you to fix it. That's all they do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, first off, nobody audits that number. Nobody picks up the phone. Nobody checks the address like they should. They should ask a electric company. They should immediately, electric company, water company, cable company. Let's start cross-checking it. The city has all of the ability to do the veracity of it, but they don't. Now, let's say that person doesn't come in and correct it. Well, they let the election run. Then after the election, they take that, quote unquote, we got the ballot back, it's not that really good, and they move it to the inactive file, which means if the person comes back in, if they vote, we'll accept it. You know how long they go on the inactive?
Oh my God.
2 general elections. That basically means from this election right now, every envelope that came back undone, that no such person. Now, this just happened today. That means basically 363 days plus 8 years. So 8 years, 363 days. If they still don't hear from the person, they'll take it off. But if they do magically, they voted, they're active again. Now, all of that is structures, laws, not laws, but standard structures, operational procedures, and internal auditing safeguards that can be fixed that do not require laws. Period. Now, when somebody in the office, like in Maricopa did not report their duns for 15 months. You're supposed to report them in 30 days. They didn't tell anybody. The election assistance tracks this. Well, we found out through the EAC and the post office that 110,000 ballots were returned that way for Maricopa alone. Maricopa reported only 56,000 and change came back. Then when we went looking for them, they said, well, we didn't keep them. We gave them to the printing company and they destroyed them. Now, all of that are breaking the laws. They're breaking the various laws on the books, but it is not a crime for somebody collecting these ballots, handing them off to a third party. So we can make very simple standards by executive order that can ostensibly plug 80% of the problems we have, but they overlook it because they know that's a viable way to cheat.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. All right, man. So I knew.
Oh,
see,
by
this
the
is
way,
why
by the way, let's take Maricopa. Supposed to have 2.5 million voters in 2020. 2.5 million. They sent everybody a ballot. Why did they print 4,089,000 for Maricopa?
Oh my gosh.
And then they wouldn't let us see the postage. I said, okay, I just want to see the postage of everyone you mailed out, everyone that came back. Simple math. If you mailed 2 million and it cost $1 to mail them, we better see a $2 million charge, right? If 2 million of them came back, we better see the same $1 charge. They wouldn't let us see the postage. Why? It's simple math. You can figure it out if they mailed them all or not. So they hid all of that. Now, why do I want that? Because for the Senate and the House, to misappropriate postage, is a crime.
Okay, got it.
Because that would just be posted misappropriation. They knew I would nail their ass. They just didn't provide it.
Can I jump in for a short second?
Hey,
guys, how you doing? I've just been sitting here soaking it all up.
No, we appreciate it. I should introduce you that the voice of Eve that you're hearing is the co-author of.
Yeah, but don't give away what country she's in. It'd be a problem. Just make sure you protect her. Go ahead.
But they fly my flag all over in these liberal. Like, come on, Jovan.
Here's the book that you gotta get. All this incredible information is in this book, and please absorb it. Countdown to Chaos, available at Amazon and anywhere books are sold. All right, so Eve, you are very knowledgeable about this stuff as well. What's going on from your perspective here 2 days post-election?
Well, I just wanted to add to what Jovan had just said about the mail, because anybody that had watched the Jesse Morgan case with the missing ballots through the U.S. mail and the ballot truck.
I was going to bring that up. Thank you for the beautiful segue.
See, look at our brains. They just were, I don't know if that's something to be afraid of or something to be proud of. They were just alike. Anyway, just trying to get the bill of lading and understand who paid for the missing vehicle. I mean, these are things that should alarm us. And, I've been watching
And
a lot of
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but refresh people's memory of what you're talking about before you go down that road here, because this is still lingering from over 4 years ago.
Yes. So, Jovan, you were involved with this. I don't know if you want to go through this because Patrick Byrne
No,
spearheaded it.
go ahead.
So it was discovered that in this sort of ballot there, and I will say the word ballot trafficking, but let's just say ballot movement in New York State. So they found that there was a location in New York State that was completing ballots, putting them absentee ballots, completing them all the way to the sending stage, and had to mail them to their appropriate locations. Well, they found out that the mail drop that they were going to be processed at nearest to where they were creating this ballot operation didn't have the right imaging. Am I telling this right, Jovan? The right imaging apparatus to inject them into the system properly. So they had to put them on a bunch of trucks. There were 9 trucks in total, and they had to transport them to the proper postage depot that had that sort of ballot imaging system that Jovan has talked about. And of the 9 trucks, they made a boo-boo.
It's called mail cover. Go ahead.
And they made a boo-boo, and and this is Jesse Morgan's truck, was loaded with this load of ballots. He had no idea what was going on. And long story short,
And these ballots between 1 and 1.5 million in each of these, correct?
Yes. Yeah, which think about your 20 million number.
The capacity in the truck should have carried 1 million to 1.5 million each truck. There were 9 trucks.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So
wait. 1 million, 9. That's 15 million. What was that chart again? Oh my goodness. What was that chart again we just saw?
Think about this. I've got my list of what happened.
Oh my God. Is another way to confirm this independently? That can't happen.
I've got my list on my phone of all the things that could have happened to
wow, look at that. Ballots. It matches.
Yeah. And I was like, well, hell, I mean, come on now. Anyway,
I mean, that is incredible.
Yeah, so you've got these millions of ballots being injected into the system, and and Jovan's talked about this before as well. Once they've been separated from the envelopes, once they're physically injected into a system, it is literally impossible to undo that nasty what's been done. I mean, listen, it happened with the one Chinese illegal in Michigan, and that they found the one guy, and the vote still counted. Okay, we're talking 15 million here, but anyway, it would be impossible to figure out, the effect of what had happened there or any of the guilt factor involved. But they could find who paid for the truck, who paid for really all the trucks, but who paid for the truck that transported that. And with simple FOIA requests, it shouldn't be that difficult. And it went down to the United States Postal Service, and they have been stonewalled since this started, and it was just pushed back again at them. And what amazes me is, and I think we're sitting at critical mass, honestly, because now we've got a bunch of Democrats that feel like something's weird, right? And if you kind of search through your X feed, you're going to see a lot of people wanting recounts. Which, by the way, I would love for them to demand a total forensic audit in Fulton County, Wayne County, Maricopa County, and in Clark County. Just,
a real full forensic audit.
Yeah. And because if these Democrats really want to find out what the hell is going on, let's get it on. Let's let's.
By the way, I predict you're going to have some forensic audits, and I guarantee you, get ready. You heard it here. It's going to be people that popped up on the peripheral of audits, always gave bad information, but now all of a sudden they're auditors. It won't be what's right. Eve, can I add something to this?
Absolutely.
So Keith, I shared this morning. My broadcast was called Confessions of an Election Heretic.
Tell everyone where they can find that.
And that's at rumble.com/Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. Jovan like the 70s cologne. When I sweat, I do not smell like that. Okay. Hutton like E.F. Hutton, if you're old enough to remember, you should listen. And Pulitzer like the prize, but I'm more like the free parting gift. Anyway, so rumble.com/Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. I did a program, it was about 2 hours, and I basically decided I'm going to tell everything that happened. And I dropped some bombs that you're not going to believe that happened in there. But I want to share with you one thing. When I'm on the ground in Georgia, when I'm testifying in front of the Senate, where a lot of people got exposed to me December 30th of 2020, because I started screaming just a week after the election in 2020, here's what's wrong, here's what happened. While we're there on the ground, we had already had pictures of warehouse full of ballots. Massive, massive overprinting of ballots, just oodles and oodles, right? Not accounted for because the ballot companies don't have to tell you. And a few things happened. One of the guys that was getting in and getting the footage in an undercover basis went and bought some pizza, and he's coming through the warehouse because they always kept this door closed and said, well, it's for employees. So when he just plays like he walks in the door delivering pizza, right? But he's got his phone with him recording, and everybody went bat crap crazy because there were voting machines in there and they were running the crap out of ballots. Now, this is the Warnock race and stuff. Okay. Well, one of the things we noticed, because we're watching all of this, is a few things. Everybody that was working this thing were using flip phones, burner phones, right? And we noticed that there were quite a few, for some reason, quite a few Nigerians, which was just really odd. Nobody knew who they were, but they were all over the place. And so I ran up the flagpole at the time. I said, look, here's how we can get to the bottom of this. What I want is the cell phone tower telemetry around the warehouse. And so I want to see every cellular phone that pings around the warehouse. It's geo-tracking, a lot like you see in ballot, the 2000 Mules. But specifically, these phones that are burner phones, you can see in their telemetry, they're burner phones. And so I said, I want to see all these burner phones, and then we'll be able to plot it over the city. Then here's what I want to investigate this. I want to match by using the rest of the cell tower data. I want to see where their phones traveled to, because through traffic cams, I can identify the vehicles which are transporting these people. And chances are those vehicles are rentals. And they're going to be dropping these people probably at hotels where they're putting them up to do this. So I will have a hotel that we can request bills, and I will have a rental car company where we can request bills, and we can find out who the hell's paying for it.
And you told us to the Georgia Senate?
Well, I didn't tell the Georgia Senate. I'm running it up the flagpole at the federal level.
Oh, okay, I got you.
And people behind the scenes, and none of it ever reached the appropriate level. When I'm saying this, how we investigate it.
Yeah.
Basically, what they did is they chose to ignore it. Not only would we have seen where those people were coming in and working, we would have been able to match those cell phones to other elections at other times. Remember, this is the special runoff that's going in Georgia. As an investigator, and remember, I've written hundreds of history books on forensic investigation of history. This is kind of one of my specialties. We have all the tools available to us to see this stuff, to understand this stuff, etc. The system doesn't want you to know that, and the system doesn't want to use it. And a lot of it just falls on deaf ears because they all know the system has problems, and they're afraid of two things. They are three things. They're either afraid they benefited from it, because, you can have a pristine candidate and you can put in a good candidate that you've compromised, and then you force them to do things. So I think a lot of these elected officials might worry that they didn't get in fairly, so they don't want to look at it. And then the other side of it, there's part that know it, part and parcel, right? And they don't want to expose. And then there's the other side, which the left perfected. We'll out you, we'll cancel culture, and we'll run you out of business, and et cetera, right? That's what they did in Arizona with the audit. I designed the audit to be both Democrats, Republicans, and independents all working together to do the audit. And the Democrat Party came out and said, if you're a Democrat and we find you working in the audit, we will run your ass out of town. Now, why'd they do that? That way it stayed all Republicans do it, so they could say it was partisan, therefore it was a hack. It's all a racket.
So, and just continuing, to that point, we've got a unique moment in time where we've got Democrats feeling pretty butthurt right now, and we've got,
just follow the blood trail.
Gerbils. There are gerbils running around somewhere.
Look for the sticky gerbils. Anyway, sorry. Wait, visualize that one. Anyway, go ahead.
I don't want to. Actually, hold on. Eve, I know you're going to make a point here, but I do have a couple of questions about the mail truck thing. So I want to make sure y'all don't. I'm telling y'all out this, and I'm telling everyone in the chat, make sure I don't forget my questions about that.
Yeah, because I want to circle back to that too, and in the true sense of the Biden words. We've got a unique moment in time where the issues may not be as widespread, but we know they're going to be there. And I think that it would give us like he said, it audits himself. It would give us a forensic fingerprint to prove, even on a small level, what we've theorized. But, to reach out to these people that are calling. I mean, it was trending yesterday, I believe, for, don't concede, recount 2024. I'm like, bring it on,
Right.
and let's start with, let's start with Detroit. Let's start with Fulton County. Let's start with Phoenix and Las Vegas and Philadelphia. But they never will. And they never will.
Well, here's Eve, I just got to chime on this because
Sure.
I tell you, look, part of the racket they did in Arizona is the GOP bashed me all the way. Then between Mark Elias, Democrat Party, and GOP, they made every attorney stand down in Arizona, every single attorney. Only one attorney was left standing. And that was the one that Mike Lindell hired to handle Carrie Lake's case. Now, without going into a lot of details on that case, I've covered it on my program. That particular attorney started early on after the audit saying all my work and stuff was crap. It was BS. Now, why did he do that? Because what it did is it ran a roadblock where he could never put me on the stand, because then the left will go, wait, you said his stuff was bullshit. Now he's your expert witness. They did that on purpose to make sure I wouldn't sit in that stand. That's how bad this is. Oh, by the way, that attorney who now claims he's disbarred says I am now an election integrity official and going to be doing audits.
But
why
see,
did that name come back up?
If that's what they did to you and black, give you a black eye with the Republicans, we should be able to make you rise like a phoenix in Phoenix.
Well, we'll see. But that's how bad this game is played. They're way ahead of most.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. And again, just going back to the mail truck thing, and I'm going to pull up my notes here. I had a friend that he dealt with unions in my state, and we got talking about the 2020 election back then, and we had already started pulling a thread that created the book, and just started having a chat with him, and he said, yeah, you wouldn't even begin to want to know what I've seen. And he said, what are you talking about? He's like, well, the unions are strong. And I said, yeah. He says, I'm not going to say anything, which is all the code I needed to know, that when you have unions and union bosses that have skin in the game, that when you have people sitting in a location in New York filling out ballots, that put two and two together and figure out who they get to do it. Now, for this election, there was a big break between the union bosses and the rank and file. And I'm not sure that they could put that many people in a location to do this operation.
They would also have a revolt on their hands because these guys are saying, hell no, America's going. We're not going to do it.
Exactly. Well, and the other thing is it costs them a lot of money to put gas in their cars to even get there. So they probably just flipped them the bird and said, not this year, boys.
You can hear them screaming in the background now.
But I mean, I just think there are multiple reasons why this happened. But again, back to those nine trucks with 14 million ballots in it. And I'd like to put some, credit where credit's due as well. I mean, Laura Trump did a hell of a job having, 500 attorneys out in each of the swing states. James O'Keefe, just knowing that James O'Keefe had hidden cameras where they were legal and nobody knew where they were, things like this. But as we're saying, I guarantee you that if we were able to take a fine-tooth comb to, some of these areas that are, rip and rife with the operation, we would find it. and it would just completely validate that mystery of where those 20 million ballots go.
Yeah. On the mail truck situation, where does that stand now? And can y'all think of a way to get the Postal Service, which is clearly compromised in its own right, no longer involved in elections? Is there a way? Because I'm just sitting here just trying to think of how that would work. And do y'all have a thought on that? I'm just throwing these out there at you.
Joanne, you want to go first? Because I've got a thought.
Well, from an investigative standpoint, if it had been thought about earlier and getting the license plates numbers of those trucks, which probably still exist, using a friendly inside anything in law enforcement, you could at least find who owns the trucks. And with a little gumshoeing, you could find out where they went, who they belong to, etc. You could pull maintenance records and stuff. You could eventually figure it out. And you probably could go back to old paperwork. You know, they probably somewhere have a license plate number. And so in figure that one, could you get the post office out of it? No, but you could enact new standards that would make it more difficult for the post office to do nefarious things, especially with election mail. That can be enacted, but that's going to take a lot of footwork and an act of Congress to get some of these things enacted. Go.
Yeah, well, and you've basically started kind of the direction I was going to go to. You know, the innovation and the minds are there. The solution is certainly possible, and if completed, one of the natural outcroppings of one of the solutions in sort of development is that you make it so that it's extraordinarily secure in a very simple way, but it begins to make it just a little more tedious to mail your ballot, and by necessity. And I think that that's one way. It's like, listen, it's doable. I think back to the mail thing too, and understanding, you know, that the mail was involved. Remember back when they started talking about COVID and the COVID shots and everything. Remember, it was very odd at the time, like, why in the hell would they exempt them? But they exempted the U.S. Postal Service from the vaccination program. And you've got to think that, number one, I mean, if I'm going to be semi-conspiratorial, they knew early on there were issues with those shots. So they knew that they couldn't afford to get anybody sick, have anybody fall out of the process. And they also needed to know that if anybody didn't want it, they were going to keep good, you know,
well,
good faith.
I want to add something else here. Remember, from a post office standpoint, that's government health care. That's all public record and auditable. They could not afford sudden deaths on an auditable public record.
Yes, true. So, I mean, when you understand how, again, you've got 9 trucks, you've got, you know, now you've got the U.S. Postal Service in a federal lawsuit, you know, obviously deflecting, been acknowledged by judges that they're deflecting. And you had all these little data points in there, and our, you know, little chart with our 20 million missing ballots. I think every person looking at this system needs to demand that it needs to be more secure, and that you need to have a part of it right at the ballot level. And it's possible, it's doable, but don't trust do not trust the federal government. And, you know, and Jovan, I'd like for you to say something about this too. When you had your friend Rats Asperger stand up the other day and scream Russia again, you know, I mean, I don't know if anything that we had done with any of the light that we signed on with the book or anything with your show or anything ever had anything to do with this, but that they even would stand up and try to say Russia, but that, you know, there wasn't this sort of ability to try and pull what they pulled in 2020.
No, they tried to see if it would stick. Remember, it's got to start somewhere. and they tried to light that fire. Russia was not about President Trump, and it really wasn't about the elections. It was about them getting quote unquote monitoring devices across all the precincts so they could say, we're protecting you against the Russians, which is why in Maricopa we didn't get the routers of the Splunk logs, because they co-loaded at the sheriff's department. And the reason they didn't turn them over is because we would have seen who was on it, 30,000 anonymous entries, which were government, not anything else. And that's how they hit it. So they tried to float it again. And they tried to float it very early, not knowing how things were going to come down. But if it was going to be pretty bad and they could sell that it had been hacked, which they're trying. Keith Olbermann's trying to sell it's hacking right now. If you see his broadcast, the Russians did it. They changed the votes. They whatever. They're trying, but it's not going to stick because I think people are more educated now. But that's their fallback too. And they did several fallbacks. You know, the machines were going nuts, or 5 or 6 people voted with the same ID, and they said it was a glitch. BS. You know, everything that was enacted before they did, but the people were far more knowledgeable, and they just couldn't do it because of too many educated eyes.
Well, in my attitude, I mean, just certain of these things really struck me in the last couple of days, and you know, figuring out how bad the federal government is involved in this, and you know what eyes they have in it. It just dawned on me that the botched assassination attempt, where you had eyes around the world begin to really shine an intense light on the Secret Service and even the congressional hearing. We haven't even seen that report. It's supposed to be incredibly damning. But there's been a lot of, you know, a lot to bear on the federal government. And you know, maybe, perhaps, the heat's just gotten a little too warm, and maybe they just felt that they didn't want to go to prison for Kamala Harris this time. I don't know.
So, just in case I missed it there, what is the next step? Do you know, in this mail truck case? Will we ever get discovery? Will we ever get more information?
Yes. Our Senate has decided, since they're not getting the information they need, that they have unanimously decided to send a strongly worded letter.
Oh boy! All right. See, don't get my hopes up with something like that, bro. Come on now. I'm
telling you the truth. You don't like it, but they're going to send a really stern letter.
Yeah, that always works. Is there a court date or something? I know you mentioned how it got kicked down the road. I just wondered.
It got pushed back, right, Jovan? So it got dismissed. So it got turned back, but it supposedly got dismissed with a door open for them to do something again. Now, you know, I don't know do we have any hope, Jovan, with the new administration?
I don't think it'll see the light of day.
Yeah.
And they're trying to see if it can go out of collective memory. And because Donald J. Trump won, nobody's going to want to push it and stir the nest. It's going to die on the vine.
Well, and your boss over there, Keith Glenbeck, said that one of the directives of Donald Trump this go around was he did not want to relive or reflect on 2020, that election, in any way, shape, or form. So there is a chance that when they go in, that, you know, all of this stuff's going to be memory hold.
Okay, that's a shame. That's a shame. Jovan, you mentioned something there. I want to go back to the 2 Senate runoffs in Georgia 2020. You mentioned the undercover cameras or what have you, and all of the Nigerians that were present. Do you have any speculation on what that is about with the Ossoff and Warnock seats? What kind of role is? I've just never heard that.
Yes, and nobody ever pursued it, but there is a common denominator. If you were to look at the various voting companies and their systems, that a lot of their people and service people tend to come from countries where they trained them, where these countries have questionable elections and have been proven to have questionable elections. And that's kind of a recurring theme that makes you go, I wonder what this means, right? And why in the US elections, if the voting company is only running software, would you have all kinds of election handlers? If these machines aren't connected to the net, why do you have service techs there that have to do continual updates? How can they get a virus if it's machine, if it's air gapped and that's the condom? How do you get a virus?
Right.
It all kinds of points to something bad.
Of course it does. Yeah.
All
right.
Jocelyn Benson standing up there and saying, we've got this big bad problem. It's nationwide, but we're going to get it fixed. And it's like, can you just say out? Why don't you just say in fewer words that they're connected?
Well, you got to understand how this hack works, and let's just talk about it's not the machines, or they wouldn't have been hiding the view. It's always the paper, people, and programs, and you got to separate that out. But when you understand the machine guidelines are all voluntary, there's nothing to enforce. There just isn't. And if you look at the companies that provide the election software and suites, people, they keep you talking voting machines when there's not really voting machines, and they're using Dell computers to manage it on the background or whatever the case may be. And in the manual, it says, hey, if you're using any other software where you're tallying results, you got to see it from afar, you're going to be responsible for connecting it to your network so you can see it. So they don't do it. It's the damn county people that don't understand. And some techie, they say, hey, make sure we can see our poll pads, or make sure we can see this little piece of management software that's managing all of our poll workers, so we know how to schedule them, because we got to get a schedule out. And they put it all there because it's running the election. They tie it to the network slips it out to the net, and there it is. It's a very slick operation. But actually, it's the tech who's responsible. The county tech, who doesn't know any better. That's how slick and well designed this is.
I swear, man. Oh, okay. Hey, Trump won, y'all. Don't forget. Just letting you know, just reminding you.
Look, we won a battle. We didn't win the war. We just won a battle.
I don't disagree with that take at all. Okay, one thing I wanted to ask y'all about. See, this is why you are so great. I'll throw stuff at you that you have no idea that I'm going to ask, and you have knowledge about this. I want to quickly just ask you, what was the deal with the passwords being online and visible in Colorado for months leading up to
Which one?
the election?
The one that sent Tina Peters to prison for 9 years, or the one that Secretary of State that sent her to prison for 9 years did herself? Which one?
Yeah.
Because one was a crime and one wasn't. I don't know which one you're talking about.
That is such a freaking great point. Oh, yeah. All right. Whatever. Yeah. No.
Remember the SCOTUS case with the pass keys sitting inside the system, basically hanging at the front door, which was described as a man-in-the-middle attack. And, keep in mind that it shows intent. I think Jenna Griswold's got a big bad problem on her hand. But she knew for months that, first it was that she knew for a short period of time that they were there. Now
well, they've already decided to prosecute her. The media has committed to question her for 9.5 minutes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. But if she did in fact know for months, therein is intent. And if you look at, is this similar to the case that went to the Supreme Court? I posit it probably was, because it's from the same state, correct? And so then you show, again, we're beyond malfeasance at that point, Jovan. We are at.
Well, first off, they won't have plausible deniability. They sent somebody to prison for it. It will exonerate that one charge, but that's why Tina has 7 charges. It's not going to get her out. Trump cannot pardon her because it's a state issue, not a federal issue. But it just shows the hypocrisy of the system. But Tina didn't go to prison because she did her job, and the system doesn't like that. Tina went to prison because she trusted the wrong people. Those people violated her. Those people caused the compromise for Tina, and I believe Tina was set up.
And remind those who aren't familiar with that story.
Well, Tina Peters, of course, is the county recorder in Mesa, Colorado. And if you go back in that story, all these cast of characters keep on recurring. But the fellow that as Dr. Frank was looking for a place to test his theory about algorithm. Key, test his theory about algorithms. And so they had decided we need a pristine Republican county because we know we're not going to find anything. We want to test our theory. And so somehow he got to Tina Peters, convinced Tina Peters where she didn't think anything was wrong. And by the way, nothing was wrong. People don't understand that. And they turn it into this thing and they turn it into an infomercial and they do this. And there are no laws about updating the machines. None, zero. That's why the techs can be there on election day and say we're updating the machines, even though they're not supposed to be connected to the internet. There are no laws against that, right? Nothing happened on the state side that was actually against a law, therefore being a criminal act. It was only kind of how it was painted. Now, I'm not covering for these guys, but I do find it very conspicuous that you have a gold star mom, a nice looking woman, a smart woman, a woman with incredible stature and credibility, son who was a Navy SEAL died, somebody that pristine, running a county, and then boom, all of a sudden, well, she trusts some people and they do it, and it turns into this it was all designed to make her look bad. I mean, come on, think about it. The state knew to raid her house on the day she got on Mike Lindell's jet. She didn't want to speak there, right? He just offered to fly her there so she could see it. They forced her to speak. She was crying, not wanting to speak, according to what I hear. But yet the state knew to raid her house that day and then to release a story she was fleeing from justice. Come on. I think it was a setup from the very beginning.
Well, and I don't know if you recall, Jovan, but when the threads began to get pulled and we were discovering what ended up becoming the book, you were working on the Arizona stuff and, raise the red flag on the communications and the routers. And one of the first things, obviously, you guys went through all legal ways to try to get your hands on those routers. And one thing that I asked them on a couple of occasions is, I wonder if there's a friendly somewhere where we could just go and get a peek inside those those routers. And we killed that concept really, really quick. I mean, I think
because it would be a crime.
Exactly.
You can't commit a crime to expose a crime. That's law. That's on the books. That's why people, you can't plant evidence. You cannot do that. You cannot commit a crime to prove a crime. And poor people believe that Tina was railroaded because she did her job. Tina was railroaded because she let bad actors in who released the information publicly, didn't protect Tina, and her damn defense wasn't to defend Tina. It was to prove Dominion in Mike Lindell's suit. And so he was trying to use it to prove his damn suit, and it sent Tina to prison for 9 years.
And I don't know, Keith, if you get Democrats or anybody on their side, listening to your podcast, but, let this be a warning. Listen, we're on your side when it comes to getting to the bottom of these things to make sure that we've got a system that runs right. And let that be a warning to people out there. If you're looking into anything, make sure that you're doing everything by the letter of the law. Don't sneak around. Be careful who you pull into your circle.
I'll give you a good
because you're not helping anybody.
Yeah, I'll give you a real good example. I was naive. I gave a bid for $210,000 to do the Arizona audit. It was really dirt cheap for what we were doing. I was only supposed to do a handful of functions. I created over 20 different things to check and do. All of that money we absorbed. That was $2 million. So if I'm a grifter, I'm the world's worst grifter. But also, more importantly, having all of that information, you have to have in a chain of custody. Now, that chain of custody from the audit to now has never been broken. Never. Right? So if you look at my website on locals, jovanhuttonpulitzer.locals.com, when you support me there, here's why it's key. Now, that's been 3 years. Do you know to keep that amount of data in chain of custody cost us $10,000 a month?
Wow.
10,000. We're talking 4 petabytes of information.
It's over 5 million.
Spend over $10,000 a month to hold that in the proper chain of custody for when it's needed for either Trump's cases or Supreme Court. I never encountered that. I didn't know that the government wouldn't take possession of this stuff. And so I had a choice, get rid of it, which they want, and break the chain of custody. Now think about that. So I'm sitting here clicking away at what we do at 10 grand a month out of my pocket to keep this current. Now let's go to the other side. There's other people out there that have people, oh, look this up and do this and match the vote and use our server and do this. Now that server of a forest animal is sitting in his house. You got people donating their time to investigate this that he's saying, oh, we're going to use for a court of law. Now, let's say they find a smoking gun. That information will never see the light of day. Do you know why? Because if it ever made it to court, all opposing counsel will do is go, well, hey, Jeff, have you ever left your house with nobody there? Well, of course.
Word.
Boom.
Oh,
gone.
Lord.
Because now you just violated the chain of custody because you can't even prove that somebody came in and changed it and it's not fake. You blew it. And so all of these half-ass efforts, right? People say, well, you're a patriot and you have your stuff behind a paywall. Yeah, you get in my book, spend over $2.4 million to do it, and click away at $10,000 a month. You start thinking about how do we pay these damn bills? But you can do all you want, volunteering for free on your damn server in your closet like Hillary, and it will never see the light of day because first day of court, it will be kicked out because of chain of custody violated. And you yourself can't even prove a bad actor came in and didn't change it to make it look that way. That's how bad this stuff gets screwed up.
Yeah, and if I may add too, if anybody is vetting Jovan for anything post this election whatsoever, you may see the occasional person here. He never released this, and I asked, and he never. If you believe this, you'll give us full access to it. Is exactly what he is saying. It is preservation of evidence. You don't just give full access. This is why FOIA requests exist, because FOIA is chain of.
So you can find that.
Yeah,
they issued somebody a passkey they shouldn't, or the drive was left by itself. That's the investigation you're piecing up. Yet all of this stuff, right, sets out there. Let me give you another example, and I'll just use Mike Lindell. This is a prime example. Mike Lindell's servers are set up by the guy who faked the Antifa Coomer call. That call's total BS, okay? Total BS, already proven in court, and even his own attorney said, well, maybe the call didn't happen, but Coomer's bad. So let's just set that aside. Now let's look at Mike Lindell, how many people he's got volunteering or whatever, or reported on our app or do this. It can't see the light of day. You know why? Because his tech guy, his right-hand guy, is the person that claimed there was a nefarious Dominion call that got everybody sued for $6 billion. If that ever went to court, that Mike found the smoking gun, it'd never be allowed. Why? Because that guy set up the servers. Boom, gone.
Okay, real quick, some quick housekeeping here. Okay, sooner, maybe Trump can get the governor to pardon Tina. Unlikely Jared Polis being a Democrat. I don't know that that's going to be happening.
I don't think it would happen
soon. Also, Linda, just so you know, and for everyone that joined us late, or maybe I don't think I even said it this go around. We try to protect Eve's identity here. So
Eve's in a precarious high-level position, and it's bad enough that we have to name her, but she has to be protected.
Yeah. So
because
that's
if you found out it was really Pamela Anderson, you'd get upset. So we have to protect her.
Okay. All right. So what else do we need to be addressing here in the immediate aftermath of the 2024 election so that we can work to secure future elections?
One thing I would like to bring up that I think is somebody asked me this. I think that there's a unique awareness going into this election than 2020 as well. Like Jovan has already talked about this, and we woke up a lot of people. A lot of people know their civics and so on. I think one thing that did that, and Jovan, I think you may have said this, but COVID had there were so many things that people learned from COVID, what the government was willing to tell you, what they were willing to lie about, how they were willing to, confine you, the levels to which they will control. So I think that has that's one thing that we had from 2020 that we have until now. And the other one are the Twitter files. I think the Twitter files put an incredible level of believability. When that article came out in Time Magazine talking about how they shored up that election, I think that, whether each side, no matter which side you're on, I think in your heart of hearts, you hope that this was going to be a, semi, air quotes here, a free and fair election. But I think those two things, COVID and the Twitter files, and actually let me make it three: Elon Musk's purchase of X and Joe Rogan. I think that there will be white papers about the Joe Rogan effect. And I think Elon Musk will go in history books at the founder level for what he had done. And I think that this election is number one, evidence number one of the effect that free speech has.
Free speech has. Yeah, it's the great truth and transparency is always the great offender and adjuster. Just show the truth. Now, here's where we set. Even I talk about this all the time, and even in doing the book, we talk about the fact, isn't it ironic? We've been screaming this for 4 years, showing how it's done. And now I'm talking now with like in the last freaking 72 hours, big broadcasters in the conservative movement. Well, damn, it was the mail-in ballots after all. And we fight just all the abuse and stuff. Right. But see, that's the human effect. That's the apathy effect. And even as dire as our country was, the system suppressed the information of how this really works. And people were really only waking up maybe a month before the election, maybe. And so and we've got years of screaming this, right? And so I just want to remind everybody, this isn't fixed. Don't let anybody or anything off the hook. But we've got, from basically today, we have 1,461 days. Now that's the difference between now and the next general election. That's 208 weeks. That is 35,064 hours and 2,103,840 minutes. Okay. Just so you know, that's how much time we have, right? To get this right. But then you have to do the damn it. And the damn it is they're probably going to enact this at the midterms. So you got to cut all of that in half. I am praying that nobody breathes easy. Yes, you should celebrate, but you should still be scared to death because they're going to come back with a vengeance and they're going to come back smarter, right? They're going to figure out how to counterbalance all of us that are trying to straighten this out, right? So you've got to demand we must fix our elections. And I'm telling you, it is not training freaking poll workers to sit there and go, yes, there were people here. I mean, that's horse crap. You can't take a 50-year-old solution looking out for the Black Panthers and think it's going to fix something in the modern age. We got to get our crap together. We've got to demand this stuff gets fixed. We got to stop with this election integrity bullshit, my team, your team, raise money, whatever. And we got to get right down to it and plug these damn 300 plus holes that have turned our elections into Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
Did you get that Keith math there, Keith? You're going to have to start a little counter again on your show in the morning.
I have to trust everyone because, yeah, you know what? You just reminded me. Yeah, I keep a whiteboard behind me on set there.
It's 1,461 days, 208.71 weeks, 35,064 hours, 2,103,840 minutes, minus 5 hours.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but Eve is referring to a whiteboard that I keep behind me on set over at the Blaze, and I can never remember to update that. So now I just got to erase the whole thing because it's just I'm always forgetting to touch that thing. Okay. By the way, there was a question just asked by Cheryl Ann. We already talked about Kari Lake in Arizona. Yeah, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong here, Jovan. I think the bottom line here of Kari Lake's battle there in Arizona is that something clearly nefarious is afoot, but the Republican Party doesn't like her, so they're not going to go and try to rescue her.
Kari Lake is President Trump with a vagina, and he doesn't have to be trans to have it, right? She is a rock star. She is American to the core. She's not afraid to call out the system, and she's trained. So you want somebody that has the caliber of a President Trump. I believe that's Kari Lake. They cannot afford her to get in. and they're subverting it right now. I pray to God that she comes out okay. The system is stacked against her.
Right. They being the Democrats can't afford to have her in there, but the Republicans aren't going to lift a finger to help.
That's not what I said.
Or you're saying
the Democrats can't afford her in. The cartels can't afford her in. The deep state can't afford her in.
Right.
And the GOP can't afford her in.
And if I can add my 2 cents.
Don't you understand that Arizona is the gateway to all the illegal money and crap?
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to shut that off.
Well, and that's what I was going to say in that it's not like, think about it. There's a reason that Arizona and Nevada have issues every single year. I mean, that is that is the flow of where the money goes, where the power goes. Think of the union power in that area. Cartels, right? Cartels illegal, unions legal. I mean,
look, it's money laundering, it's the sex trade, it's the human trade, it's the drug trade, it's the illegal arms trade. It's a joke. And by the way, Keith, I'm sorry I said President Trump with a vagina on air. Sorry about that. I saw your face. I saw you duck. But it was kind of the only thing I could think of that puts Carrie Place in the right descriptor.
The analogy works.
What she is. I love Carrie Lake.
She's got better hair, though. I mean,
She does. I love Carrie Lake to death. And I know a lot of people accused her of not being tough enough or whatever. And yes, she had to play with the system. So I understand what position she's in. But all those different factions, including the GOP, cannot let her in. She'd be running their asses out of town, and they know they can't control her, and they're just not going to let it happen.
Well, you know what really struck me, Jovan, is I spent a little time in that area of the country this year, and when you drive around through there and you realize the wasteland of nothingness there, right? I mean, it's desert and rocks, and they have a city, and then desert and rocks, and they have a city. Suddenly you have the Grand Canyon.
Yeah,
it really hits you the amount of money and influence and what is going on, because there's no reason for it really to be there.
No, let's see. I want to get baked. I want to not be able to grow anything. I want my skin to peel off and blister in the sun, and I don't want any water. Hey, Arizona.
Exactly. There you got it.
They've got good golf courses. Okay. So
that they do. But then again, Vegas built the same thing. And what's Vegas known for? Sand, rocks, dirt, and great golf courses, and all the other illegal crap that Arizona has.
Exactly.
Okay. So are there any other major points that you want to cover before we part ways this go around? Because I want to, obviously, this is a conversation that needs to continue well into the future. We need to constantly be vigilant in revisiting this topic on this podcast, and obviously on your own. Give your Rumble account.
Rumble.com/Jovan, Jovan, Hutton, Hutton, Pulitzer, like the prize, Pulitzer. And I did a program today called Confessions of an Election Heretic that you may like, but I broadcast 3 times a day, every day, 7 days a week. I told people, my family asked me, why do you seem so sad? You should be jumping up and down. And I identified it for my audience this morning. Yeah. Well, I identified it for my audience this morning. I had to do a lot of soul searching. And it's because it's like a bubble. When we were all kids blowing bubbles with soap, and we get one big bubble and you love it and it's beautiful and you see the rainbows and it's floating along. But it takes one little bitty wisp of wind or one little wrong movement or one little blade of grass and it's gone. I realize right now I'm worried about that bubble, right? And I know how fragile this system is and how it can be. And so I feel a little relief President Trump's in, but something's nagging me. Something's hurting me. And let me tell you what's hurting me. They brought in ostensibly 7 million military-aged men. Now, that's a completely different profile of illegals than we had. I grew up in Texas. Remember this. We always had families and all kinds of stuff. We didn't have military-aged men. And we're not hearing something. And the left is saying, oh, accept the results, be nice. Well, they staged these guys. I even broke a story where I showed, hey, this is a Syrian terrorist. Let me tell you who this guy is. And that went viral. And he says, you're going to remember my name in the video. Something's up. I can't put my finger on it. It's too quiet. I told you we got these days. These 76 days, I believe, can potentially come hell. Something's up. You don't import that many military age men and think we're going to possibly peacefully get to January 20th or even have a peaceful 4 years. It just worries me. It's nagging at me, and I don't have enough patterns input it yet to put my finger on it. And so, no, I'm not celebrating.
No, I agree completely with that. And you just enunciated perfectly exactly what I'm thinking as well. Yes, you're absolutely right, Jovan.
It's chewing at me right here. You know, you have pain where you can't swallow, or your heart, which is really a pain. But then you have that, it's not pain, but it's chewing at you. It's nagging at you right here in the center of your solar plexus, your soul. It's nagging at me, and I can't put my finger on it. So my radars and my hackles are up. I don't feel safe.
I'm concerned too about, this video, that this Jamie Raskin thing about, we're not going to certify.
Right.
Now, if we get if we get the House, hopefully that's, not an issue. But listen, I don't think there's any reason that we need to be dancing into January. I think this is all going to just be, rainbows and unicorns and butterflies,
Right.
Here's where we are in the House. Ready? We got 210 Republicans, 197 Democrats, with 28 still to be determined.
Yeah.
That scares the hell out of me. Because you got to remember, the House is the one that brings charges. The Senate prosecutes and enforces the charges, but they have to be brought from the House.
Yep. And
that
let me put this map up here real quick that you're referring to.
And it's all the swing states that we need all this time to count. They're working underneath to put in what they need to control that process.
Yep. And there it is. 210 to 197, 218 needed for a majority. So
look how scary that big chunk of air is, that big chunk of desert and rocks.
I know. Got it. Oh,
scary.
Yeah.
Actually, the patches in California are pretty desert rocky too.
Well, we're not out of the woods. They're not going to give up. They didn't throw up their hands and say, we're guilty, we're going away. We only got a little bit of reprieve in the air raid. That's it.
I would like to say too, if anybody listens back to this thing again, I want to. This should be a bipartisan issue. There shouldn't be any way that this is one side or the other. But that case that's going on down in Georgia, where they've pushed that through with their board of elections and so on. Hopefully that stays on, and nobody, none of the pit bulls grabbed onto that bone are going to let go of that. And if anybody on the other side, is kind of looking at kind of how to look, where to look, and what to do. I think, they should encourage those guys, and anybody doing that should help anybody else. If you find something, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, let's not let up. Like Jovan said, there's not a lot of time to make to prepare for 2020, the 2026 midterms, and,
protect yourself, protect your family, protect your home, worry about your front door and your back door. We got to fix this election integrity stuff. You got the same with that same 1,461 days. You got 1,461 days to figure out your plan for setting yourself free, maybe homesteading, maybe getting you a safe place, maybe moving to Montana, whatever the case be. The clock's ticking. Get after it.
Clock is ticking. All right. Well, as always, Jovan Pulitzer, Eve, I appreciate your time and your knowledge on all of this stuff. I mean, it's terrifying, but it's so important that we talk about this stuff and that we do something about it. So please make sure that you hold our elected officials accountable, and that they are listening to us and making sure that our elections are secure. Because if we don't have secure elections with voting integrity, we don't have a country. And so just God bless both of y'all for all of the insane amounts of work that you have done and knowledge that you've acquired and put into like the book right there, Countdown to Chaos, and all the stuff that you do online and that you keep us informed. Grateful for you. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out, and we will talk again, probably not in the not too distant future, if you guys have the time, because this is something that we can't just visit every 4 years right around election day. This is an ongoing battle. Like you said, we just won a battle. We didn't win a war, not even close. We've got to stay vigilant. So thank you both, and thank you all for tuning in and participating in the chat. I really appreciate all of your time. But let's be, I guess, happy that things went pretty well, on Tuesday. But let's not lose focus. Let's not lose.
Get my smile.
Let's not lose focus of the bigger picture. All right, I'm gonna hang up now. Y'all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you again. Actually, tomorrow on the Friday